everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to talk about how I prepare my patterns before I start cutting glass. So back when I learned stained glass, I was taught to hand draw my pattern and then put a piece of tracing paper over it, transfer the pattern to tracing paper, and then put the tracing paper over a piece of cardstock, and then cut out those pieces so that you have the cardstock pieces to trace onto the glass. That is a lot of work. So now when I make patterns, I strictly do them digitally on the computer in Photoshop. I'll still use pen and paper to sketch out my ideas, but the final pattern is drawn in Photoshop. I like to draw them with a 10 pixel line, and that's set at 300 pixels per inch. And I find for me that that's the perfect thickness to give some wiggle room between the pieces to account for the foil. So what I do is I print out 2 copies on normal paper. One of the copies go into a plastic sleeve. That way when you are grinding your glass, you can put it right onto the plastic sleeve and check that the piece fits well without getting your pattern all wet and damaged. The second pattern goes onto one of my ceiling tiles, and this is what I pin the glass pieces to after they're foiled and ready to solder. And then finally, the cardstock piece, this is the piece that gets cut out and traced over and over and over again if you're going to make multiple pieces. Now, if this was a simpler design, I would use my pattern shears, because they have the space built in, but they're kind of bulky and really hard to cut around curves, so I don't really use those that much. Instead, I just cut out with normal scissors, and I'll make sure to cut out the black line. So now I'm going to cut out my pattern. This is kind of probably really boring to watch someone cut out a pattern, so I will definitely speed it up for you. So there we go. Now my pattern is ready to be traced onto glass. There are two reasons I prefer to do my patterns this way. One is because I always make multiples of a piece, so having the pieces cut on cardstock, it's quicker and more efficient for me to have one pattern and then I can just trace it a bunch of times. The other reason is a lot of the glass I use is more on the opaque side, so it would be impossible for me to put my pattern on a light table and try to trace through opaque glass. So, yeah, and yes, I am aware of how tiny that piece in the middle is. I like little pieces. All right, thank you, bye.